Hello everyone, it is the Gaming Weasel back again with another video. And in today's video we're going to be doing a top 5 Warframes for the Steel Path. Now, I want you to keep in mind, and an open mind, that this is my list. These are the Warframes that I use in Steel Path, and I am aware that our other Warframes that are very good in Steel Path. I just love these Warframes, I love using them. You might start to like using them in Steel Path because you probably didn't know about them, or you probably knew about the Warframe themselves, but you didn't know they were actually decent in Steel Path. And yeah, before we actually start our top 5, there will be an honorable mentions at around, between number 2 and 1. But before that, I'm going to be using the same exact build throughout the whole video, throughout all 5 Warframes. And I'm not saying that number 5 is better than number 1 or number 1 is better than number 5. They are all great Warframes inside of Steel Path. So, the Tenant Envoy is my weapon of choice. I love this weapon. I can 1 or 2 shot acolytes with this with ease. And a couple of things that I wanted to show you, of course, is the build. Galvanized Chamber and Aptitude, of course, we do need to have these for multi-shot and status chance. Galvanized Aptitude can be even probably changed out for another mod, but I keep it because this weapon is pretty proficient with it, in my opinion. We have Critical Delay, we have Vital Sense, we have Prime Cryo rounds, Thermite rounds, Malignant Force, and Heavy Caliber, and also Vigilante Supplies, and a Primary Arcane Merciless. A couple of things that I want to note is when you have Primary Merciless on, you do not need to use Serration, because the damage itself will go up by itself, and they're not additive, so that doesn't help you out in any way. But if you do not have Arcane Merciless, definitely you can change out, let's say, Thermite rounds or Galvanized Aptitude for Serration for that extra damage. Now, my base damage on this weapon is Impact, because I kind of effed up what I got. Actually, no, it's not Impact, it's Cold, sorry. It's Cold damage, and then, of course, I have Heat and Viral here for a great armor-reducing combo and a damage-dealing combo as well. Now, the Kuva Core. Now, my Kuva Core does not have, I guess, Magnetic as its base damage, and I do prefer you actually put it on there. Now, couple of things that I have to talk about here is this build is not a very good build. I do not use this. I rarely use the Kuva Nuker as itself because I rarely use melee when I use the Tenant Envoy. But as you can see, we have Seeker right here, which is really great because this is a great mod for this weapon, and I would definitely prefer you put this on. You can change out some of the mods like Hornet Strike, Barrel Diffusion, because this weapon, its purpose is to apply statuses. It is not to do damage. So basically what you want to do is just basically make it as much and as many status types as you possibly can, and have Seeker on there as well. I don't at the moment, as I said, I do not use the Kuvanoker that much. And of course, my melee weapon of choice will always be the Chrono Prime. Great weapon to have. I have Sovereign Outcast, I have Primed Reach, Berserker Fury, Blood Rush, Condition Overload, Violent Scourge, Organ Shatter, Primed Fever Strike, and Vicious Frost. This could be changed out. Definitely some things could be, changed out. Gladiator Rush is a pretty good mod to have here as well. We have Weeping Wounds if I can find it, which I probably can't. Gladiator Might I wouldn't really recommend. I kind of don't like it on this weapon. If you don't have Prime Reach, use Ordinary Reach as well. And yeah, basically you can change it how you want. I'm just showing you my build that I'm using. For my Kavat, we have a Smita Kavat. Basic build, we have Tech Enhance, we have Charm, Hunter Command, Animal Instinct, Fetch, of course, Hunter Synergy, and Enhanced Health, which I do need to level up a little bit. And basically, that is it. That's all I have to show you here. Now, we will be moving on to the actual gameplay itself. And for our 5th, or I guess 1st pick, we have Hero. Now, Hero is my main Warframe, even though I didn't play him for a long time. But I love Hero, I love his aesthetics, and I love his abilities. He, in my opinion, is very, very useful inside of Steel Path. A couple of things I want to note is the mission is Titan on Saturn. It's not a high-level mission. This video is mostly based on people who want to get in and want to know a couple of Warframes that are good for Steel Path. So keep that in mind. It is mostly just, mid, high tier level, if you get what I'm saying. So, yeah. Hero. Now, Hero is, if you don't know, obtained by doing the Chains of Hero quest, and his parts are obtained all over the place. They're quite interesting to get, and we're gonna talk about his abilities. So, Hero's passive is that he possesses 200% overshield's capacity, granting a maximum of 2,400 overshields. Now, I do have, on the build that you can see right here, I do have redirection on, and that is mostly because I find it to be very useful to have around 3,000 shields, because his second ability sacrifices shields. His first ability gives him shields. Tribute, or Thurible, sorry, his third ability will give you energy once you kill an enemy and double for headshots. And of course, Covenant is just a very cool ability. Now, Condemn, you basically trap enemies inside of his chains, and you gain shields per enemy grabbed inside of the Condemn. Penance, sacrifices shields, but it increases, gives you lifesteal on hit, so keep that in mind, 5% lifesteal on hit. I think this is just a base value, this cannot be changed by power strength. It increases the fire rate and the reload speed of your weapons, so that is very, very good. And of course, the durability can be also increased by activating it again, or even double, depending on the amount of shields that you actually have. Thurible, which is his third ability, he charges it up, consumes his energy, and then you will get a certain percentage back, or a certain number back, once you actually kill an enemy or give them a headshot. And of course, headshots do give you some extra energy right there as well. Covenant, you become invincible. You gather up damage from enemies, and then you convert that into critical chance. So the conversion rate is 1.5% critical chance per 100 damage, so keep that in mind. The headshot multiplier can go up to 4 times, so the maximum you can reach is 50% extra critical chance and 200% on headshots. This is incredible. Covenant is a very good ability. It does have an augment called Lasting Covenant, which you can use, but I use Covenant in situations where I need invincibility. So I don't use that augment, but this ability is very good at getting out. It is basically a get out of jail free card. It is a very good ability, and it is a very fun ability to use as well. Extra critical chance, never killed anyone except the enemies that you're shooting, and 200% on a headshot is very, very good as well. His abilities synergize perfectly with each other. They correspond to each other. You get your life back with your second ability. You also get shields with your first ability. You become invincible, get critical chance with your fourth ability, and get energy with your third. He is very, very good. In most of this gameplay, you're going to see me camping, because that is the most efficient way of playing steelpath, in my opinion. There's no reason to run around like a madman if you don't need to. Just stay in one spot and be as efficient as you possibly can. Hero, a very, very good Warframe, and that is why he is in my top 5 picks. And moving on to number 4. And at number 4, or number 2, depending in which direction you're going at, we have Oberon and Oberon Prime. Now, I'm guessing a lot of people didn't expect Oberon to be on this list, but some people might have. Oberon is one of the tankiest frames inside of the game. I'm not saying the tankiest, there are definitely better frames, but he can survive Steelpath without any issues. He's a very good Warframe, he's well balanced, his abilities are very, very useful and suited to his, I guess, skill set, sort of. And they fit with his GOAT character, and of course the one and only GOAT of Warframe. Now, the build looks something like this. I mostly went for power strength, adaptation, other general. Honestly, with this build, I never run out of energy. My renewal is active 24/7, 7 days a week, 365 days, and I'm still not running out of energies as long as the enemies shoot me. Phoenix Renewal is the augment that I have here, because every 80 seconds it will allow you to tank critical damage and fatal damage, I guess, and allow you to survive. His abilities, passive, creatures of nature rejuvenate in Oberon's presence. So, Kubros, Kavots, Paradisites, sites, whatever they're called, and wolf profiles will receive 25% health, shield, and armor links. And of course, Oberon's own Kubro, in my case Kavot here, so on and so forth, will receive 1 extra revive per mission. Now, Smite, first ability. Smite is a very decent ability to use. Apply radiation to enemies, of course, do impact as well, and it's a very good ability because you can actually stagger the enemies, and you can, maybe knock them down sometimes, but Smite isn't the main focus of this Warframe. Hollowed Ground is another story. Now, this scours the ground with magical grass, in my case purple magical grass, applies radiation damage to enemies. The status chance does increase depending on your power strength, and basically this is one of the best crowd controlling abilities that I love using. You can survive as much as you possibly want with any sort of Warframe, but even if you pick a weak Warframe, if the enemies are not shooting you, you're still surviving. This makes the enemies, of course, radiation as a proc makes enemies shoot one another and turn against each other. Basically, this does that, but on a much bigger scale. You apply, I think you can put 3 grass fields down, I'm gonna call them that, and basically you're gonna get rarely shot, so you don't have to worry about it. And when you do, you have your third ability. This is a renewal. Healing waves of energy flow outward from Oberon and his allies, regenerating health over time. The energy drain, of course, does increase and is dependent on your efficiency, but as I said, Hunter Adrenaline basically mitigates any of the energy drain that this ability has. It gives you an armor buff, an initial heal, and a health per second. It slows down your bleed out, so that's really cool. And honestly, the armor values that this ability gives and the health is very good. It is very easy to use. You just activate it once, you don't have to worry about it, and basically just tank anything that shoots at you. Now, we have Reckoning, one of the more useful abilities of Oberon as well. So basically the bottom 3, so second, third, and fourth ability are very useful. Reckoning slams enemies on the ground, reducing their armor. Of course, blinding them for a certain amount of seconds and a certain radius as well. They have a percentage of dropping health orbs, which is very good. The damage is decently scalable, not the best damage scaling, but it is pretty good. Mostly you're doing this for the blind, for the health orbs, and also for the armor reduction. So nonetheless, a very good combo right there. I have to say I needed to put Oberon here because I think that he's really underrated. He's not looked at as much as the other Warframes are, and I think he deserves to be in this list, and maybe some of you are gonna try him out and see that he's actually good. The playstyle is pretty simple. All you need to do is, as I said, activate Renewal, then put some Hollowed Grounds around you, and then use, when needed, Reckoning, and basically that is it. Rinse and repeat, and you are done. Well, moving on to number 3. And at number 3, we have Protea. Now, I have to be completely honest with you, but lately I've been playing Protea more and more, and I'm just now realizing how goddamn good she is. I want to keep you a note. I didn't remove it from the video because I wanted you to see it. I did die once in this video because I didn't pay attention, and that was when the Acolyte attacked me. With this Warframe, it's not as easy, I have to say, or like it is with, for example, Oberon, with some of the other frames coming up, and or Hero. But if you're careful enough, you can play pretty easily with this Warframe and clear out steelpath without any goddamn issues. Now, Protea is very useful. Her build looks something like this on the screen right now. It is a pretty basic build. I kind of went sort of in between balance of power strength and or duration. Duration is very important because her second ability actually scales off a duration of the enemy's level. So the more it is active, the higher the damage output goes. Now, some things probably could have been changed out. The steel charge aura is kind of useless on her, so this could have been changed out for growing power. That would have been good. Of course, I could have actually removed stretch, but stretch seems to be quite useful sometimes, and transient fortitude is pretty good, I think, where it is. So, the abilities. Her passive will give her every third, so you activate, let's say, your first ability twice and then your second ability once, then the next casted ability will have 100% ability strength, which is very good. This is, of course, affects every single ability of her, so Grenade Fan will do more damage per second. Blaze Artillery, damage per shot. Dispensary will give you extra drops, and Temporal Anchor will record damage at a much better conversion rate than without using the passive active, without having the active passive, whatever. I'm trying to speak, but it doesn't seem to be working. But let's move on to the abilities. Grenade Fan. Tapping this will drop or throw 3 little balls that do slash damage that slowly picks up in damage. So it will go up and up and up and up. Not as fast as some other Warframes do scale, but it does go higher and higher and higher, which is very, very good. You throw down 3 of them, this cannot be changed, and they do stagger the enemies, which is very, very good. Holding your first ability will drop shield satellites, which will heal your shields very fast. Very, very fast. You're gonna see me in the gameplay throwing down 3 of them, picking one up. Every time I lose a couple of my shields, I go back, pick the other one up, and I always have an extra reserve somewhere near a spot where I camp, so I can have those shields when I need them. Now, when I died, I didn't do that, and that was me being not careful, and then that's why I died. So if you don't play carefully, you're gonna die without any hesitation. But honestly, she is pretty good. Blaze Artillery is her second ability. This does heat damage, which also staggers enemies and reduces the shields of enemies, which is very, very good. It is better to have, it is definitely better to have duration on here than power strength, because the ability lasts short as well. So having it last longer is very good because the damage can scale much higher. The arc is kind of low, but you can, I think, place down 3 turrets at once at maximum, which is definitely the amount that you can play. So 3 is the maximum. And honestly, this paired with the first ability, Grenade Fan, the Shrapnel Vortexes, is definitely a great combo. The enemies are staggered, they have slash, they have reduced armor, and also they're on fire. Basically, that is a match made in heaven. You can kill and just basically activate your abilities and just chill out, and you don't have to worry. Dispensary basically dispenses shields, universal ammo, and health. And that is basically it. It does a rotation, and I usually activate this ability when my passive is active, so I get more extra energy and or shields. Temporal Anchor. This drops an anchor at a point where you are currently when you activate the ability. You run around, activate your abilities, you know, kill enemies, shoot enemies, and so on and so forth. Throw down your first ability, second ability, and any damage that you take is, of course, not any. I'm trying to find the word, but I didn't. Nonetheless, it doesn't really matter, because if you die, or I guess take fatal damage, you just go back to your Temporal Anchor. So basically, at this point, you're invincible, and if you do not die, you will, every single energy that you used up will be returned back to you at the starting point of your activation of your ability. Now, it does record damage, so you're going to take some damage, and every recorded damage when the Temporal Anchor ability runs out, I guess, will actually just implode and do some damage to enemies. So basically, that is very, very good. Honestly, Protea is a very fun Warframe to use. Hopefully I explained her in the best way I possibly can. I kind of maybe explained it stupidly, but hopefully you get it. Honestly, she's a very good Warframe. She's very fun to use, and she's pretty chill to use as well. You can use her in a lot of missions, especially in steelpath, and you don't have to worry about anything. So she is definitely a great Warframe to have and have fun with. So there you go. That was number 3. Moving on to number 2. And that number 2 or number 4, depending on which direction you're counting at, we have Lavos. One of the most fun Warframes in my opinion. I am a person who loves active Warframes. I am a person who loves casting abilities and feeling awesome while doing it. So Lavos is very, very fun in that aspect. You're gonna see throughout the whole list that basically that is my type of gameplay. And as I said, this is my list that I think are very useful Warframes. Now, Lavos is one of the newer frames. He has really good health and armor values, and he does not have energy. So instead of energy, his abilities on a cooldown. I cannot speak apparently. His passive is that Lavos can cleanse all negative status effects and also gains 10-second immunity to status effects every time he picks up an energy or a universal orb. So that is very, very good. Now, his first ability is Orphidian Bite, 8-second cooldown, you apply Toxin and you get your health back per damage done. The status chance is 100%, and it does open up the enemies to a melee finisher vulnerability, or I guess to melee finishers, so keep that in mind. Now, I have to say that all of these abilities, all 4 of his abilities, have a base status or a base element. So first one's Toxin, second one's Cold, third one's Electricity, and fourth one is going to be Fire or Heat. Now, why is that? In the bottom right hand corner, you will see that all of the 4 elements can be combined to the corresponding combination of elements. So Toxin and Cold will give you Corrosive, then Toxin and Fire will give you Gas, then Toxin and then Electricity will give you... I actually forgot what it gives, but you can make all of those combinations here. And what does that mean? Now, let's say I have my Orphidian Bite off of its cooldown and I want to, for example, do corrosive damage. Well, if I press and hold my number 1 and then my number 2 key, you can do it at the same time, or well, let's say you can hold down 1 and 2 at the same time, and then subsume it, or I guess imbue the element that way, or you can hold down 1 and then hold down 2 and then you can imbue corrosive that way. So it doesn't really depend, it doesn't really matter, I guess. And then what that means is my next ability casted, so for example Ophidian Bite in this case, will do Toxin and corrosive damage. So hopefully I explained that in the best way I possibly can. Second ability, Vile Rush, 5-second cooldown, does cold damage and the imbue damage of your status types. You go in a straight line, you can move a little bit left and right and stop whenever you press the number 2 key again. It's gonna throw bottles of coldness and, as I said, the imbued status type upon your enemies behind you, and this is very, very good. Now, I have to explain this, and I have to skip the third ability just for a second here. Orphidian Bite is an ability that is a jail out of free card and basically activated when you're low on health to gain health back. Vile Rush is an ability that is very good at applying status effects on enemies. So what I do here is I use Cold, I imbue Corrosive, and then the enemies have, of course, Cold and Corrosive on them applied, which... if you have the Cedo, definitely use this with this weapon. I said this when the video actually came out, when Lavos came out, when I reviewed him. The Cedo and Lavos are the best Warframe and weapon combo that ever came out in Warframe, and I'll explain right now. Catalyze, number 4th ability. Has base heat damage and the imbued elemental damage that you have and that you want. You toss out 9 probes around you in a circle fashion that to do damage, which is very cool, of course. And they have a maximum distance around 25 meters, which is pretty good. You don't really need to have a long range of catalyzers, so you don't have to worry about it. Now, the vertical, I guess, reach is not that high. They don't reach really high up in the sky, but enemies don't usually fly around you, usually, as I said. So you don't have to worry about that. But the great thing about this ability, you get 100% damage increase per status effect affecting the enemy. So what do I do? Then, let's say I'm using the Cedo. I use my middle mouse button and activate the Alt Fire, which applies random status effects on enemies. I then use Vile Rush with Cold and Corrosive, and then last but not least, I use Catalyze with Heat and Viral to decimate anything, and I mean anything and anybody who is close enough to see me. This ability combined with this combo that I just said is incredible. It is incredible. The cooldown of it is 30 seconds, but you can bring the cooldown with efficiency and, of course, with your third ability, which is Transmutation Probe. You launch a probe in a certain direction, adds a base electricity damage and debut the damage type that you put down. And, of course, the efficiency, it reduces 1.5 second cooldown per enemy shocked, or I guess tagged with the ability. Now, you can press number 3 and then it will go in a straight line, and then you can press it again if you want it to stop. So this is a very cool ability. As you can see, in most situations, I'm able to use Catalyze every like 5 or 6 seconds because I activate my Transmutation Probe. So that is very good, and that's why I skipped the third ability, because I always use my third ability after I use my fourth one, so keep that in mind. So Lavos, one of the best damage dealing Warframes that you can possibly play. You do need to, bring that combo up a little bit, with the Cedo and, your abilities, but when you do, believe me, the satisfaction is pretty incredible. So that was number 2. Moving on to the honorable mentions. So, yeah. And for the honorable mentions, we're gonna have a decent sum of Warframes. Now, if you want to play the Steel Path, you can basically almost do it with every single Warframe, but these are my recommendations that I know they are incredible, and I know they're really good. They're just not my picks, and I don't like them that much. So, we have Chroma, of course, we have Excalibur, which is okay, we have Gara, then you can use Mesa as well, you can use Mag if you want to, then you also have Woban, Zaku, of course, Wukong, Wisp, then you can use Zephyr as well. Revenant can be useful, Octavia, of course, Severgoth, Valkyr, Trinity. You can even use Necros if you want to. Hildrin is also a good Warframe. Seren. And as I said, basically any Warframe that you use, it is going to be pretty good. But as I said, my recommendations, and hopefully you didn't get so pissed. At least I put your Warframes inside of the honorable mentions. So moving on to number 1. And at number 1 or number 5, we have Nidus and Nidus Prime. This is the first Warframe other than Excalibur Umbra that I've applied to Umbral Forma on, because this Warframe is simply incredible in my mind for Steelpath. This Warframe's and this abilities and of course his build that I made for him makes Steelpath an easy freaking game to play. Honestly, I love this Warframe, and I am not placing it at number 1 or number 5 because I play him a lot. It is mostly because I play him a lot, actually, never mind. I do play him a lot in Steelpath, and I think he's easy mode for Steelpath. There are other Warframes that make Steelpath easy game, but of course Nidus is my favorite. So the abilities and the builds look like this: growing power for the aura, power drift, blind rage, and intensify for that extra power strength. We have primed flow for energy, stretch for range adaptation and hunter adrenaline, also umbral vitality for that extra health, and teeming virulence for that extra juicy primary damage that can stack up to 371% with the build that I have. Now, his passive is that he has mutation stacks. So it is divided into 5 sections, and every single section can be filled out once you hit the enemy with your first ability, once you hit an enemy with your fourth ability, once the I guess ravenous maggots explode, so you have a chance of getting a mutation stack there. 50% chance of getting a mutation stack when enemies are hit inside of larva through any source. It doesn't matter if it's your ability or a weapon that you're using. So in Steelpath, you will grow your mutation stacks really fast. His other passive is, when he suffers fatal damage, 15 stacks of mutation will be consumed, and he will avoid bleed out while receiving 5 seconds in vulnerability and restoring 58% of his HP. And of course, he does have a lot of aesthetic changes when he reaches certain mutation stacks, so keep that in mind. But the abilities. Virulence is your main sort of used ability. You get a 25% energy refund rate per hit, so keep that in mind. Range is very important here, and damage is not as much because his damage is scalable. So even though I do use blind rage, intensify, and power drift and growing power, it is not that needed, but because of teeming virulence, it makes it simply incredible. Because teeming virulence, of course, what it does is increases your rifle's damage, so or your primary rifle damage. You will see me do orange crits and red crits for days. If I had a clean shot on the Acolyte, he would have died in one hit, which isn't strange at all with the Tenant Envoy alongside Nidus as well. So, Virulence, first ability, does damage, increases your stacks, and of course restores 25% of your energy back. Larva. Larva groups up enemies in a certain radius depending on your range. You have a 50% mutation stack chance gain, so keep that in mind. And this is also a very, very good ability to group up enemies to use virulence and gain mutation stacks. Parasitic Link. Now, once you link this to your ally, if you're playing with someone, you will both get an extra % of power strength increase. If you put it on an enemy, if you're playing solo, which I always do, you will get a damage reduction up to 50%, if I'm correct. And this doesn't use any energy on casting. It does use up 1 mutation stack. I have to say that Larva uses 25 energy, no mutation stacks, and then Virulence will use up 40 energy, but if you hit a lot of enemies, it's not going to really matter. Ravenous, it uses 0 energy as well, which is its 4th ability, and it costs 3 mutation stacks. Now, it summons a grass that regenerates health once you stand over it. It summons maggots that attach themselves to the enemies, and they do toxin damage, which is pretty cool. And also, once the ability runs out, if you do not recast it, it's going to explode and do a decent sum of damage in the area, and even maybe gain you a chance of getting some mutation stacks back. So, those are the abilities. And with this ability set and a good weapon and a good secondary melee weapon, you are literally indestructible. Now, a couple of times I did kind of take fatal damage because I wasn't careful. That always happens to me. But honestly, with this Warframe, if you're playing just a chill session, you don't want to die, you want to survive as much as you possibly can, just play Nidus. He's a very cool looking Warframe, I have to say. I mean, you know, looks are very important. His abilities are very, very good, and especially with the augment, his weapons are great as well. You're gonna decimate anything that you come up in Steel Path. Doesn't matter if they're level 150, level 170, 80, 90. You're just gonna decimate them without any freaking issues. So that is my top 5. A little bit of a longer video. Hope you guys enjoyed this. I haven't made one of these longer videos in a long time, and I honestly think that you guys deserve this. I love this. Sorry if it was maybe a little bit short talking about little Warframes, but I didn't want to make the video like 50 minutes long because it doesn't make sense for 5 Warframes. But nonetheless, hope you guys enjoyed my list. If you guys did, leave a like, a comment, and subscribe. I try to make content on YouTube. That's what I'll say. And if you guys did, as I said, leave a like, comment, and subscribe. I appreciate it a lot, and thank you guys so much for the support, and I will see you guys on the next one. The Gaming Weasel over and out.